Week 3 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few tight ends I have as sleepers this week. The first tight end, Dalton Schultz of the Houston Texans. Dalton Schultz last week, it was a quiet game for him in Week 1 as well. Week 1 at the Rams, 3 catches, 28 yards, 5 targets. And Week 2 versus Tampa, 3 catches in that one as well, 29 yards on 4 targets. So the targets got to go up a little bit for Dalton Schultz, but someone has to emerge as a number 2 option in this passing game. Jaden Higgins, I thought he could come out and have a decent start to his rookie season. That hasn't been the case. Christian Kirk, he's been out the first 2 games. And Xavier Hutchinson, he's not really a wide receiver that stretches the field or does much in the receiving game. So this week at Jacksonville, I think Dalton Schultz, he can find openings in the middle of the field. And like I said, they need someone to emerge as a number 2 option behind Nico Collins in the receiving game as this Houston Texan team. And I think Schultz, he's getting the targets, he's getting some separation, but him and Stroud just haven't hit yet on a big play, and he's available in 81% of fantasy leagues. The next tight end, Ja'Tavion Sanders of the Carolina Panthers. So a decent prospect coming out. Last season was Sanders out there in 96% of fantasy leagues. In Week 1, he didn't do much. 2 catches, 27 yards, 3 targets. And then last week at Arizona in Week 2, 7 catches, 54 yards on 9 targets. So Sanders maybe starting to get into this offense a little bit more for this Carolina Panther team. But obviously we have to see way more out of him before he's a viable option week in and week out. But he got added in 2% of fantasy leagues this week. So this week in a matchup versus Atlanta, where they're going to be trailing early and often and most likely have a lot of garbage time. If you're in deep leagues, Ja'Tavion Sanders could be a tight end that I think could be an okay sleeper option. Like I said, to come off 9 targets last week is nothing to overlook in my opinion. So let's see if he can build on it. And the final tight end, Jake Tongs, the San Francisco 49ers. We know Kittle's hurt with a hamstring injury. He's out at least a few more weeks as George Kittle. Tongs out there in 98% of fantasy leagues. I know Luke Farrell had the touchdown last week, but the first 2 weeks he's been serviceable in PPR leagues. Jake Tongs, Week 1 in Seattle, 3 catches, 15 yards, a touchdown. And Week 2 with the Saints, 4 catches, 31 yards on 5 targets. And now with Mac Jones in there, quarterback, and these guys got rapport working with the second team in all the training camp and preseason before obviously Purdy and Kittle got hurt, where both these guys are now in the starting lineup. Jake Tongs, he could be surprising, I think, at the tight end position for fantasy owners. Like I said, first 2 weeks, 17.60 fantasy points. Not horrible for a guy that no one knew about coming into the season. And this week versus the Arizona Cardinals, the defense I don't think is that good. And we just saw Ja'Tavion Sanders come off 7 catches, 54 yards versus defense. Tongs could be a decent sleeper option, and he's available in 98% of fantasy leagues. That's a few tight ends I have as sleepers for Week 3 of the fantasy football season.